This is Jakarta, Indonesia, one of the world's biggest megacities in an urban cluster of 13 million inhabitants. In the bouncing heart of Southeast Asia, Buzzworld landed for a tremendous first-time international mobility bus and coach exhibition.
I have a very good feeling.
Buzzworld being right on time in an extremely challenging era for a country of 260 million inhabitants. It became the key factor for a smash hit in the core of the collective transport and bus and coach market. The first edition welcomed the biggest and most popular bus and coach manufacturers and bodybuilders of Indonesia: Mercedes-Benz, Volvo Buses, New Armada and Laksana. All of the key brands were here and 7,000 unique visitors came to the venue together with the international professional press.
Great opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Volvo B11R and Volvo.
Launching new products like the Volvo B11R or the Mercedes-Benz OF917, updating the audience and the press, open-air ceremonies for new buses, and presenting companies with accessories and components. It all took part in the JI Expo on Buzzworld Indonesia 2019. The market for buses and coaches in Indonesia was clearly waiting for an exhibition like this. The two core organizing partners of Buzzworld International, the Federation of Young Bus and Coach Operators IPOMI and the Federation of Bus Bodybuilders in Indonesia, Askerindo, did a great job in bringing together the operators, the decision makers, and all lovers of buses and coaches in the country. Checking out the latest designs of buses and coaches, components and spare parts on Buzzworld is easily combined with attending presentations, seminars and expert classes at a conference organized by Buzzworld Academy. 350 people from 30 countries came to listen to speakers and international mobility specialists from more than 15 countries. Buzzworld Southeast Asia 2019 exceeded all expectations and was a real bullseye for the bus and coach community. This is Jakarta, Indonesia, one of the world's biggest megacities in an urban cluster of 13 million inhabitants. In the bouncing heart of Southeast Asia, Buzzworld landed for a tremendous first-time international mobility bus and coach exhibition.
I have a very good feeling.
Buzzworld being right on time in an extremely challenging era for a country of 260 million inhabitants. It became the key factor for a smash hit in the core of the collective transport and bus and coach market. The first edition welcomed the biggest and most popular bus and coach manufacturers and bodybuilders of Indonesia: Mercedes-Benz, Volvo Buses, New Armada and Laksana. All of the key brands were here and 7,000 unique visitors came to the venue together with the international professional press.
opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting you the Volvo B11R and Volvo.
Launching new products like the Volvo B11R or the Mercedes-Benz OF917. Updating the audience and the press, open-air ceremonies for new buses, and presenting companies with accessories and components. It all took part in the JI Expo on Buzzworld Indonesia 2019. The market for buses and coaches in Indonesia was clearly waiting for an exhibition like this. The two core organizing partners of Buzzworld International, the Federation of Young Bus and Coach Operators IPOMI and the Federation of Bus Bodybuilders in Indonesia, Askerindo, did a great job in bringing together the operators, the decision makers and all lovers of buses and coaches in the country. Checking out the latest designs of buses and coaches, components and spare parts on Buzzworld is easily combined with attending presentations, seminars and expert classes at a conference organized by Buzzworld Academy. 350 people from 30 countries came to listen to speakers and international mobility specialists from more than 15 countries. Buzzworld Southeast Asia 2019 exceeded all expectations and was a real bullseye for the bus and coach community.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Buzzword Southeast Asia Webinar Series Session 5, which is held by GEM Indonesia and Busworld. I am Meta to be your MC today. Selamat siang para narasumber dan audiens semua. Terima kasih atas kesempatan yang diberikan kepada saya untuk memandu jalannya acara Buzzword Southeast Asia Webinar Series Session 5. Before we start today's webinar, let us welcome Mr. Jan Dimet, Managing Director of Buzzword Foundation, to deliver his opening speech. Mr. Jan, time is yours now.
Thank you so much, Meta, and very welcome to everybody attending this webinar. This webinar, which is in preparation of the Buzzworld Southeast Asia edition, which will take place in Jakarta next year in March, from 23rd till 25th. We will be gathering the entire industry there, as well the manufacturers, the suppliers, as the operators, as the knowledge institutions, and I definitely hope for the presence of the authorities, the Ministry of Transport, and other stakeholders in Jakarta and the Southeast Asian region. The electrification of the bus fleet is a major topic around the globe right now, but definitely in Southeast Asia. You have the strongest growing region in the world. You have the strongest growing individual motorized fleet in the world. So that means that we need to take a shift for two reasons. We need to take a shift because of reaching the climate goals, which is related to greenhouse gas emissions and related to air pollution. But we also have to make the switch to avoid the enormous traffic jams that is destroying our social lives and our economy. So a webinar and definite seminars during the Buzzworld next year in Jakarta will be dedicated to the electrification of the bus fleet. There's two small remarks I would like to make as an introduction in this webinar. First of all, is that the industry is making enormous efforts to realize this electrification. But we are depending on the electricity that is being delivered to us. We are not electricity producers. We are users of the electricity that is being delivered to us by others. And if this electricity is being produced carbon-based, then what have we done? So there is a big demand to other stakeholders as well to decarbonize the production of electricity. And only in this case, the electrification of the bus fleet can have the effect that we want. And secondly, I just want to put here on the table that the electrification of the bus fleet is asking enormous financial efforts. Investments are growing, but also operational efforts to make the switch. We have to train people, we have to train drivers, we have to make investments in our depots, we have to invest in software to realize a smart charging of the vehicles, etc. So these efforts should be feasible for the industry. And one way to make them feasible is to collectivize the public transport, which means that we have to make the switch from individual motorized transport modes to collective transport modes. And we have to realize that this effect, if we could make the transition for about 10% of individual car use to collective, which means bus and coach use, the effects on climate goals would be exactly the same as the electrification of the entire bus fleet. So I'm not saying that we have to choose the one or the other. We definitely have to go both ways. But the collectivization of transport is a goal as such, but it's also a way to help the transport industry in realizing a zero-emission bus and coach transport. So this webinar is definitely at its place. It's at the focus of everybody's attention here today. And I thank all the speakers present today, and I really look for an intensive collaboration for the conference that will be in Jakarta in March next year. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Meta, for saying these words, and I kindly give the word back to you now.
Thanks for the opening remarks, Mr. Jen, which officially opens today's webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, this time we will present Buzzword Southeast Asia webinar series, session 5, with them Electric Mobility, Future Indonesia Toward Zero Emission Buses in the Cities. The session will be conducted by Mr. Harya S. Dillon, Secretary General of MTI, Indonesia Transportation Society. For today's presentation, there are 4 speakers. They are Mr. Rizal Wasal, Director of Road Transport, General of Land Transportation, Ministry of Transportation, Republic of Indonesia. Mrs. Financia Nanlohi, Transport Associate, Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, ITDP Indonesia. Mr. Bayu Purbo, Expert Staff of Board of Director of PT Transportasi Jakarta, Transjakarta. Mr. Chris Liang, Operation Manager of International Development Department, Shenzhen Bus Group Co. Ltd. Selamat datang Bapak Ibu narasumber. Terima kasih telah meluangkan waktu untuk hadir bersama kami di sini. Welcome to all speakers and thank you for being with us and sharing your precious time and knowledge. Sebelum memulai sesi webinar, perlu kami sampaikan kepada seluruh audiens, semua pertanyaan akan dijawab pada sesi tanya-jawab. Jika ada pertanyaan yang ingin ditanyakan kepada para pembicara, silakan tulis di kolom box Q&A dengan format nama dan institusi Anda selaku penanya, pertanyaan ditujukan kepada siapa, dan isi pertanyaan Anda. Para narasumber akan meresponnya pada sesi tanya-jawab. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Harya S. Dillon, our moderator, to take over the next session. Mr. Harya, stage is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you, Meta, and thank you, Buzzworld, for this excellent opportunity to chair this very distinguished panel. It is indeed an important topic, one that my organization, Indonesian Transportation Society, is very much an advocate of, and I'm glad that now that this is our second collaboration. And we are very much look forward to March of next year, where we hopefully can meet in person and also share even more stories, more technologies, and more business opportunities, and also in achieving development and also climate goals, and in a big in an event hosted by Jakarta. So thank you again. So today's topic is one that is very important. The government has thrown its support behind it, and as we're speaking, we know that our top executive is on his way to Glasgow to attend COP, Conference of Parties, exactly on climate issues, and he will be presenting Indonesia's climate goal, and one of which is very much related to urban mobility and as Jan said, the collectivization and now electrification of transport. So hopefully those two receive the attention that it deserves. Well, we have a distinguished panel here today that Meta has already mentioned. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage Mr. Rizal Wasal. I'll read his profile. Mr. Rizal is currently the Director for Road Transportation Facilities at the Directorate General of Land Transportation, Ministry of Transport. And prior to holding this position, he was the Director of Railway Safety at the Directorate General of Railways, and also Director of Infrastructure at the Metro Jakarta Transportation Authority, or BPTJ. And he was, at one point, he was also Director of Safety in the Director General of Land Transport. Pa Rizal, the floor is yours for, let's see here, we have you for 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Pak Arya. Good afternoon, very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So allow me to explain the program of Indonesia regarding the electric car and buses for the buses. And before we focus to the buses, we will give some information regarding the Indonesia now are ready to move from the ICE to BEV, so an internal combustion engine, to use the battery electric vehicle. We already have the roadmap until 2019 to 2030. The program is meant Indonesia for the government ready to change for the official car to IC to BEV, even the central government to the local government. They must be changed. The official car use the electric car. So the next program is we have priority to use the public transport for using the electric car via bus. I mean the bus for the bus rapid or MRT. And then the priority means start from the public transport in urban transport and tourism area and airport, bus airports. And the super priority for the tourism area, we have a 10 priority for the area tourism. Regarding the bus, electric bus. So as you know, President Jokowi have mentioned, they have a statement regarding the zero emission. Indonesia continue to commit to achieving net zero emission by 2060 at the latest. In the direction, the government and the other stakeholders need to jointly formulate the steps to control climate change that are consistent and sustainable. Pak Jokowi, they have from Jakarta Pak Jokowi they said to Pak Gubernur to use the electric car for the buses for the Transjakarta. All the vehicle, the future must be friendly with the electricity. So this is again the zero emission vehicle, the definition. The vehicle that does not emit the exhaust gas or other pollutant from the onboard source of power. If you look in the background, the way the policy, the automotive Indonesia, you know, the increase of the number of motorized vehicle in Indonesia has an impact on air quality declining. So this is a very serious threat in Indonesia, especially in urban area with a high density of motor vehicle. Pak Presiden juga gave me some order for government of MOT to change to use the electric vehicle, bus electric for the public transport, for the mass transport. The President suggests to the Governor of DKI Jakarta to increase the number of electric buses as mass public transportation in Jakarta in order to reduce air pollution in the capital of Jakarta. And the DKI Jakarta government has compiled a roadmap for the use of a battery-based electric vehicle for Jakarta, for the Transjakarta, and explain starting from 25, all the public transport Jakarta will be used in electric bus. Okay. Next, data. This is the number of the vehicle, electric vehicle in Indonesia. Okay. Now, how much 12,000 electric car operation in Jakarta consists in with the passenger cars more than 150, and then for the fuel 155, and the motorcycle is to more bigger until 10,000 motor vehicle operate in Jakarta. Okay. There's a plan of the government to using the eco-friendly transports regarding the mobility, energy, the traffic system, charging point, battery electric, LRT, and energy then eco-friendly. This government have the plan to use the system to use the electric vehicle. This is a target. The next is target implementation for the public transport in Indonesia. Okay, start in 2019, we have to corridor the buses in Bandung and Surabaya use the bus electric with a program in Indonesia we call it the by the service. This subsidy for the public transport in Bandung and Surabaya for 2021, and then for the next years more corridor will be 6 corridor. We'll use the BTS with the electric car, and then our target until the 2030, 90% the public transport will be used the bus electric in 34 provinces in Indonesia. This the big program, the big target in Indonesia for the climate change to use the electric bus for the operational for the public transport. Okay, this is the timeline, the schedule since 2021 and until 2030 for the implementation by urban transport use the electric bus. The next target is the tourism area. This is we call the Bali Baru for the tourism area in strategi in Danau Toba, Tanjung Kelayang, Tanjung Lesung, Tanah Toraja, Candi Borobudur, Mandalika, Gunung Bromo, Wakatobi, Labuan Bajo, Morotai dan Likupang in Manado, That's all. The tourism area must be used the electric vehicle. From the buses to the 12, they must be used the electric vehicle. And we have plane to city like the Nusa Penida and Labuan Bajo. This is for the tourism area. The all area use the electric car. Okay. This is the program, the project for the bus, like bus in KSWN in 2020. It is 37 project with 110 bus with electric buses. Okay. Next. Ini bisa lewat, di area boleh lewat. Lanjut. Oke, lanjut. This is we're talking about Jakarta. Maybe Pak Director from Transjakarta will be explain detail about the roadmap. Transjakarta will use all the bus Transjakarta will be use the bus electric since 2025. Okay, now they already use the electric bus for the pilot project. For the pilot project import and products in Indonesia, they have trial in Transjakarta, and our regulation required the electric bus for the must use the SUT, certificate of uji type, and then certificate regulation of uji type before they have the number of police from police. This is our requirement in Indonesia for the use the bus electric for public transport. Okay, the next. That's the trial for the bus district Indonesian products by the Higher in Transjakarta. Okay. Lanjut. This is as I mentioned before, the MOT have the program by the service from the public transport. We keep the subsidy for the public transport use the electric bus. We have still the problem, maybe the problem or challenge regarding the bus electric. How to calculate the operational cost for the bus electric? This is very different with the combustion engine. With electric bus, we still have calculate the cost operational for the electric bus. This regarding for the by the service, how much the government must be paid for the kilometer per kilowatts battery. Okay. This is a requirement minimum for the electric bus regarding the security, affordability, safety, kesetaraan, and then convenience and regularity. It's for our requirement for the electric bus. Next, this is we have the program we call the Teman Bus. The Teman Bus is a system for the public transport in Indonesia for the how we can plan, how we can to calculate to I forget how we calculate this the Teman Bus. We know the bus will be operational with good by the driver, by the operator through the Teman Bus. We have the 50 big bus now for the trial with 50 packs per bus and for the 250 kilometers per day for operational with the Teman Bus. Okay. This is the implementation project excluding the Transjakarta for the electric bus. Now start from the Bandung and Surabaya. Bandung with 1 corridor, Surabaya 2 corridor, and the next for the 6 corridor for the trial in 2023 with Bandung and Medan more corridor. And in 2024, we have used the electric bus. Until 2030, 90% Indonesia public transport use the bus electric. Not only a big bus, not only standard bus, it is including the we call the angkot. Angkot. The next will be used the electric car. Now we trial the car like angkot in Solo with the electric vehicle from the DFSK. Trial to how to calculate the cost, how to calculate the system of charging in Solo. Use the urban transport like minibus. Okay, I think that's all information the program for Indonesia regarding the electric bus until now since 2020 to the 2030. Thank you, Pak Arya.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Rizal Wasal. Thank you so much. That is a very impressive presentation, and also very ambitious goals that it should be, because we do have the potentials. The government is not only looking to electrify, our fleet, public transportation fleet, but we're also looking to be a major battery producer as well, because we do have the mineral resources to manufacture those batteries, and I think we're in a very good position to become industrial leaders of electric mobility, as well as off-takers or users. Thank you so much, Pak Rizal Wasal, and we hope that we can continue this conversation beyond this webinar. Okay, so next we have Financia Nanlohi. She's a transport associate at the Institute for Transportation and Development, ITDP Indonesia, who will be presenting about a roadmap of e-bus implementation in Indonesian cities. Finan is graduated from University of Indonesia Transportation Engineering, and she also has earned her advanced degree from the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. In ITDP, she's currently responsible for electric mobility adoption, for public transportation, being buses in Indonesian major cities such as Jakarta, Greater Bandung, and Greater Medan. So, Mbak Finan, the floor is yours for the next 15 minutes. You're still on mute. Okay, yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the time that Buzzword that already invited us to present our current work in roadmap of e-bus implementation in Indonesian cities. First of all, I would like to apologize on behalf of our director. She cannot present in today's webinar, so I will represent her to present our current work in e-bus implementation. So this is the outline for today's presentation. I will start with explain why the roadmap is important for e-bus adoption in Indonesia, and then I will explain the policy gap that we have analyzed for e-bus implementation in Indonesia, and then I will explain the methodology that we use for developing the e-bus implementation. Then I will present our result study for e-bus implementation in Jakarta, and also our ongoing study for e-bus implementation in Greater Bandung and Greater Medan area. So why we need the roadmap? As you know that electric bus is the kind of the new technology, so we need the roadmap just to give you a clear implementation strategy. Usually in the roadmap, it includes like the policy analysis and then the technical aspect like e-bus, the technology of the bus itself, and then charging strategy, charging infrastructure provision, and then the implication of the electric bus deployment in the current grid. And then we also calculate like the amount of investment that needed to electrify the specific public transport in selected area. And then we also will analyze whether like a new or innovative business model we need to implement this electric bus. And then what is it, the benefits from the environmental perspective and the economic benefits from this electric bus adoption. Just to give you an overview that currently ITDP is working on several e-mobility adoption project in Indonesia. On the left side, we are working on e-bus adoption in 3 different cities in Jakarta and also in Greater Bandung and Greater Medan. We're also working on 3-wheelers electrification, but then in today's webinar, I will focus on present our study for under the UNEP CTCN funding for supporting Jakarta transition to e-mobility and the current ongoing project for e-mobility adoption roadmap for Indonesian mass transit system in Greater Medan and Greater Bandung from the World Bank. So yes, this is the several policy gap that we have analyzed. So started from Presidential Regulation number 55/2019. So our government has an ambitious target to electrify the roadmap transportation. Then based on this regulation, there are derivative regulation that's issued by several tech ministry like the Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Transportation, and so on. And then we have identified the several aspects from the policy types to accelerate the e-bus implementation in Indonesia. The first one is from the direct incentive for consumers. So in terms of electric bus, we need the strong monetary incentive from the national government, like for the vehicle registration and transfer taxes, and also the import tax maybe to Indonesia. And then we also need the indirect incentive for the consumer, like the implementation of low emission zones. And then we need also the policy for the infrastructure development policy. Currently, we have regulation that issued by Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. But then based on our discussion with Transjakarta, that we found out that in this regulation, there is not specific mention about the incentive for the installation of the new connection, maybe for the depot that that need to burden to the operator. And then the fourth one is public fleet vehicles mandates. One is mentioned by Pa Rizal before that for the electrification of government vehicles. But then we also think that how about to adopt e-bus or taxi mandates for cities that have a problem in air quality. And then last but not least, this is also important for accelerate the e-bus implementation, which is the adapting of innovative business models. So we can learn from Santiago de Chile or other countries that already successful in implement the e-bus implementation. So they adapt the innovative business model that split the ownership and the operational for the electric bus. The one that important is also the contract period. The current contract period in Indonesia for diesel bus, it's maybe for until the 7 years. But then if we want to have the electric bus, we need maybe to change our regulation to extend the contract period just to get like to save to reduce the financial burden. So I will explain the methodology that we use when we defining the implementation phase, either in Transjakarta and also in Greater Medan and Greater Bandung. So we will start with key specification analysis. So this is in Transjakarta, that may be based on the operational data that we have, for example, like daily distance per bus, and then the bus type. And then we did also analyze the market availability based on the type of bus. And then for the second step, So this is the one that we only conducted for Medan and Bandung. As in Transjakarta, they already have the system, but then in Medan and Bandung, this is typically the new system. So we need to like a group and allocate the road that had been choosing for to be the BRT roads to the specific depot. And then based on this allocation, we then can identify the charging strategy. So there are 3 types actually charging strategy that we have analyzed in our study. The first one is the overnight charging at the depot. And then the second one is like midday charging during the off-peak period. And then the third one is the fast charging, whether we need to install fast charging at the end of a road, or we call it the terminus. And then based on the charging strategy for the technology, we will calculate the total cost for the option. For example, you have 2 different type of buses. So the bus A we will use the battery capacity of 320 kilowatt hour, but then for the second bus, we only use 180 kilowatt hour. Then for the type A, maybe overnight charging only can cover your daily distance. But then for the type B bus, you need, like we need to install fast charging at the terminus. Then it will affect your total cost of the ownership. So yeah, based on this analysis, we will select like the most efficient technology to be deployed in the specific road. Yeah, and then we will develop our strategy on the implementation phase, which is based on the demand, the financial analysis, and then the technology readiness, spatial analysis, whether maybe they have shared the same depot or terminus, and we can grouping to implement it together. Yeah, this is the 3 type of charging that I have mentioned before. So overnight charging at the depot, and then there is no additional infrastructure needed because the bus will need to have charging at the depot during the night. So it means that if we have this strategy, so it has the lowest TCO. And then for the second one, for the midday charging at the depot or staging facility, so yeah, this charging strategy can only be done during the off-peak periods. And then for the second one, the third one, we will have like opportunity charging at the at the terminus. So yeah, I will move on to our case study for Transjakarta. So I believe that Pak Bayu from Transjakarta will explain more in detail regarding Transjakarta Electrification project. But then here, just to give you a brief overview that this is based on data in 2020. So Transjakarta currently have 7 type of services. And in our study that I will explain today, we only focus on electrification for BRT and direct service roads. We have more detailed analysis for all of Transjakarta roads, but then it's still an ongoing study. So this is the Transjakarta Electrification project. They are planning to electrify 10,000 of their fleets, and the procurement target is varies between fleets type in Transjakarta, for example, like single bus, medium bus, or also including the one that's called angkot or microbuses. So this is the summary of our study in Transjakarta. So as I mentioned before, we conducted at the e-mobility analysis for Transjakarta BRT and non-BRT roads. There are around 124 roads. So based on our analysis, only 14% of 124 roads can have overnight charging only, but then 43% will need to have overnight charging to combine overnight charging and opportunity charging, or we need to install fast charging at the terminal. And then for the rest, we need to combine overnight charging, opportunity charging, and additional charging during the off-peak period. So this is our recommendation for the phase of implementation for Transjakarta BRT and non-BRT routes starting from 2021 to 2030. So usually it's based on also we consider the charging technology demand and market availability. So as you can see from phase 1 to phase 3, we mostly focus in single and medium bus that currently available in Indonesia, and also there are several OEM that already conducted a trial in Transjakarta. But then in phase 4 and phase 5, we will focus and also in the articulated buses. So the detailed report you can download on our website. Yeah, this is the opportunity and barriers that we have identified from our study from Transjakarta, and we also compare with other cities in Indonesia. So compare if to other urban bus provider in Indonesia. So Transjakarta has more financial and resource capability for the electrification. They also has a strong commitment to roll out the e-bus deployment. And then they already have like a supporting facility for the electrification, like a depot. But then there is some barriers also from the policies, like I mentioned before, maybe from the contract period, or yeah, the installation cost for yeah, the new connection at the depot. Then they will also electrify the microbus fleets. Yeah, but then it still has a higher complexity. And then for the business model, the current business model for Transjakarta, it may not cope with this electrification target. So they need to change a little bit, or need like an innovative financing scheme and business model to accelerate their electrification target. And then I will move to our case study in Greater Medan and Greater Bandung. So I think it's also mentioned by Pak Rizal before that the World Bank is currently preparing the Indonesian Mass Transit Program. And there are two cities, two priority corridors in Indonesia, which are Greater Medan and Greater Bandung. So at first, the diesel is the default fuel for this BRT system. Then currently, ITDP, we are working also with ICCT on yeah, design the potential to leapfrog to e-mobility. So how if we electrify this new BRT system? The difference here is from, if we compare from the Transjakarta, so the system on Transjakarta, it's already established. So yeah, and then they have the diesel bus. But then for Greater Medan and Greater Bandung, it's typically new. And yeah, so that's why for the phase of implementation that we have conducted here, it will be different that for with the one that we have conducted in Transjakarta. Just to give you an overview, so this is the plan that for BRT network in Greater Bandung. So yeah, the corridor it's around 19 kilometers in this middle of the city, and then the demand is around 99,000 passengers per day. This is based on the data that we received from the World Bank, and there are 16 direct service roads that we will have in Greater Bandung. So just to give you overview, that direct service means that the bus can run in the mixed traffic and then go through the BRT corridor, like what you have seen in Transjakarta. Then this is for Medan. We will have a BRT corridor that goes from Pinang Baris to Amplas. The total length of the corridor is 21 kilometers, and the estimated demand is around 150 passengers per day. This is also based on the data from the World Bank. In total, maybe there will be 19 direct service roads in the BRT system, with the total fleets around 400. So yeah, This is the scenario for implementation that we have think for electrification of public transport in Greater Medan and Greater Bandung, because we also consider the fiscal capacity from the government. So we have two scenarios. One is we will implement all 100% electric in the first year of the implementation, and the second scenario we will have like partial implementation by considering charging technology. All of these two scenario has a pro and cons. For example, for the electric, if we implement 100% of electric vehicles, so maybe we only need the infrastructure for the electric buses, and also we can focus like the staff and maintenance, spare parts, capacity building will be focused in the electric bus. In terms of environmental impact, if we electrify all of this BRT system, and then we have a higher impact of greenhouse gas emission. But then there are some cons also for this scenario, because e-bus technology, it's quite new. So we have like limited availability of charging infrastructure than e-bus technology in Indonesia. And the second point is limited experience from the bus operator to operate this electric bus. And then also, if there is an issue with the electric bus, it will have an impact on the whole system of the BRT. Higher capital cost is another issue. As we know that the electric bus price is like 2 until 3 times higher than ICE buses. For the second scenario, if we implement like the partial implementation, diesel and electric bus, we will reduce the capex because we will have diesel buses in the system and also electric bus. And also we can analyze the performance comparison between ICE and electric bus. And if something happened to these electric buses, we will still have ICE as a backup. But then we need to provide the infrastructure for ICE and electric buses. As I mentioned, this is a new system, so yeah, we still like provide the depot that can be used for ICE operation and also the electric bus. And the fleet management will be more complex. Another one is we need, if our goal is to electrify all the fleets in the system, so it means like we need to wait for another contract period to achieve like 100% electric buses in the whole system. So yeah, this is the key takeaways that we have summarized. If other cities in Indonesia also want to implement the electric bus adoption, specifically for public transport, so they need to change their institutional and regulatory setup. For example, like form a public transport authority, and then level of service regulator, and then like a regulatory permission to install a charging infrastructure. From the operational aspect, we need to have like a standardized the headway on the operational hours, a road itinerary adjustment to improve the service. So we need to make like the service plan for the system. And from the infrastructure perspective to support the e-bus adoption, we need like a dedicated bus stop or station and terminus, like a depot facility. We need to provide the charging infrastructure, and we need to make sure that we have the reserve grid capacity to accommodate the impact of the e-bus implementation. So the last one, maybe we need the command center or intelligent transportation system infrastructure. Yeah, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pinan. And I totally agree with the need to, transform the institutions of public transportation, especially the micro buses in our cities. Yeah, some cities like Medan and Bandung, they are yet to transform their institution from traditional or even informal financial management of these operations to something that is more aligned to Transjakarta. And I think credit also goes to Semarang and Solo, who have been successful in transforming their institutional structure of of bus operation, and also credit to Ministry of Transport, who's pushing that by the service scheme in major cities. And so with that, I think we can now learn from Transjakarta's experience, an ongoing program in electrifying their fleets. So I would like to welcome Mas Bayu Purbo. He's an expert staff to the board of director at Transjakarta. And prior to his work at he used to work with the Bluebird Group, a company, and before that at the Bank Danamon Indonesia. So without further ado, Mas Bayu, the floor is yours for the next 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Is my presentation is visible?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Carry on. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Good afternoon all. Today I will represent Transjakarta and Pak Yoga, who is unable to attend because there are activities that cannot be left behind. Greetings to all of us. Thank you to the event committee for the invitation. Thank you, Mas Koko, for the time for me presenting TJ perspective about electricity mobility and TJ plan for electrify our entire fleets in the next 5 to 10 years. Okay, my name is Bayu Purbo. I am currently assisting Pak Yoga in planning the implementation of the electric bus. My contribution is more on the planning and operational aspect of electric bus. Not so much on the technical side because my previous background was mostly in the operational fleet. Okay, yeah, let's get straight to the presentation material. We can go to the next slide. Yeah. Okay, as said and mentioned by Pak Rizal from Transport Ministry, a set of regulation have been issued both by the central government and local government to ensure the implementation of electric buses in Jakarta can be carried out immediately. Yeah, at the local government level, there are already governor's instruction and governor regulation or peraturan gubernur related to climate change issues, one of which state that in 2021, Jakarta will operate 100 units of electric buses. Local tax for electric vehicle in Jakarta area have also been set on 0% by regulation. It's a good news. On a timeline, in addition to procuring 100 units of electric buses this year, by 2025, Transjakarta plans to have at least 50% of its fleets turned into zero emission buses, and by 2030, plans to electrify 83 to 100% of the fleet. Okay, this is our trigger in implementing the electric bus in a joint commitment with 34 other cities around the world, which are all incorporated in C40 cities. Jakarta is committed to immediately making the process of transitioning to zero emission vehicle and only procuring zero emission vehicle in 2025 and beyond. And in this year, the pilot project for the operation of 100 electric buses will begin. Yeah. Since 2022 until now, we have conducted trials on various model of electric buses. This trial will continue to more other bus models and types. We are open to trial collaboration with various bus provider or manufacturer, and also the possibility of supporting infrastructure network provider. Until the last quarter of this year, there are one provider that has completed the entire series of trial, which consists static test, load test, dynamic test. Then we'll end with a trial carrying non-commercial passenger for 3 months. There is another brand that is currently undergoing this trial phase, which is targeted to be complete in December this year. Following later, several other brands will be tested, both from China and from local Indonesia. Talk with several providers from Europe have also started. Hopefully, more brands will participate, so that will have more options to choose and find out which technology is most suitable for the Transjakarta operational model. But we also pay attention to aspect of efficiency, durability, fleet performance, and battery, of course. Okay, then at the end of this year, until 2 years, we start a pilot project phase. Start with 100 buses by the end of this year. 20 units of them are already in Jakarta and are in preparation to start operation. Next year, we will also increase the number of buses that will be operated. We need 2 years of the pilot project in order to get a sufficient experience to refine the operational model, charging strategy, and contract model. In the pilot project stage, it is still possible to us evaluate in terms of maintenance cost and ratio of energy use, and etc. This is something new for all of us, so there needs to learning both from the Transjakarta side and the bus operator side and provider or manufacturer side to get the most optimal, effective, and efficient scheme. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. This is our target in general, as previously explained by Pak Rizal and ITDP. In 2021, we will operate 100 units of electric buses with a low floor single bus type, 12 meters. This type of bus was chosen because in terms of implementation, it is the easiest to operate. The consideration is that the low floor single bus will operate on non-BRT routes outside the corridor, or commonly known as feeders. The characteristic of the non-BRT route is that the distance is not as high as the BRT routes. So a battery with a capacity of around 300 kilowatt hour is sufficient to run the bus all day. In addition, the load factor of feeder route is also not as large as the BRT routes, so that by placing a big battery that causes that vehicle's weight to become heavier, it can still be compromised with the total weight of the passenger being not too high. Another consideration is that non-BRT routes do not always have a proper terminal endpoint for charging facilities to be installed. Quite a lot of which don't even have a space at all. Just a small bus stop as a sign. This means that we cannot and don't need to build a supporting infrastructure for charging outside the depot. Just overnight charging at the depot. This thing make the complexity of the non-BRT route not too difficult to implement. This is different with the BRT route. BRT requires special handling, very high daily mileage, very high passenger load factor, especially in rush hours. These things cause high complexity during planning and operation. Battery capacity selection strategy become important. Passenger capacity is a priority on the BRT bus route. This causes us to choose a medium-sized battery under 300 kilowatt hour, around 200 to 250 kilowatt hour only, not a big one. By reducing the size of battery, we can still get enough with remaining passenger. So the medium battery strategy with a combination of overnight charging at the depot and opportunity charging outside the depot is an option for the BRT bus, because the BRT route require additional infrastructure outside the depot. Then in terms of implementation time, we decided to implement it next year, not now. Okay, by 2025, we plan to operate at least 50% of electric buses and stop procuring ICE buses at all. By 2030, we hope that 100 of the fleet operate will be electric buses, or around 10,000 of fleet. We hope that by 2030, Transjakarta will no longer be a contributor to pollution and greenhouse gases in the city. Okay, as I explained earlier in the previous slide, this is a pilot project scenario for the next 2 years. The goal is to ensure a match between operational strategies in various route scenario with battery charging and technology strategies. Also evaluate the total cost ownership or cost scheme in order to get the most efficient point on the one hand and still be profitable for all parties on the other side. By 2024, we hope to have a fixed model or scheme for the rollout of electrification of up to 10,000 fleet by 2030 later. Okay, the contract scheme for the electric bus in the pilot project state will continue used by the service scheme, where Transjakarta as the bus management company will contract with bus operator with a service payment scheme according to the distance travel or mileage. The operator will procure the bus, operate and maintain the bus, and install the charging infrastructure at the depot. In bus maintenance, the operator can directly subcontract with the APM or bus provider for full package maintenance service, or it can be taken by operator self. They have provided that all mechanic, workshop, and equipment have been certified by the bus principal or manufacturer by following their standard or service maintenance. But in the future, with the increasing number of electric buses, we are certainly open to innovation in possible contract models. Moreover, the financing capacity of the operator, like ITDP mentioned, is also a consideration. Not all operators have the large financing capacity to procure electric buses. So we are currently also conducting a study with ITDP too of possible contracting and financing model. Yeah, for the pilot project of the first 100 unit bus, we will operate a bus on the non-BRT route with low floor buses with a battery capacity of 320 kilowatt hour and a strategy of charging overnight charging at depot with all buses procured and operated by the operator, and the route chosen will be determined by Transjakarta. 30 unit will be operated this December 2021, and remaining 70 will be operate in the first quarter of 2022. Yes, this is our pilot schedule. There was a delay because of the pandemic, but also because we are waiting for the regulation regarding the electric bus contract period to be issued. As is well known, the period public transportation fleet can be used in Jakarta is maximum 10 years, but the contract period for Transjakarta with bus operator for one contract cycle is only 7 years. This is regulated by law. Because investment on electric bus is still expensive, we propose to be able to extend the electric bus contract period so that the total cost ownership can be cheaper and closer to the TCO of the ICE bus. And good news, in mid-September last month, a governor regulation per group was issued which allow the electric bus contract period to be a maximum of 10 years. This is the basis for our pilot project contract. We are currently finalizing the contract and hope that the next Monday, we will be able to sign a contract with the operator, and this December, 30 buses will be able to start operating, and 70 will be operated in the first quarter of 2022. Yeah, okay. The challenge in operating electric buses include ensuring that we have competent human resources, so that in the contract we require the driver, mechanic, workshop, and maintenance to be certified. Driver and mechanic are required to training and be certified. Another challenge is the high cost of investing in electric buses. It costs about 2.5 to 3 times more than the ICE bus. Tax relief from both the central government and local government is actually available, but it seems that more effort are needed to continue to lower the price of this bus. Hopefully, with the start of the electric bus and battery factory in this country, price can be cheaper. The idea of retrofitting or converting an ICE bus into an electric bus can also be an option. Or we can also extend the contract period for more than 10 years. For example, maybe in 14 or 16 years, but with 2 battery replacement cycle. Battery price over time also continue to drop to become cheaper and better density. As information, the cost of importing built up a bus from CAFTA countries, Southeast Asia and China, is in the cheaper, around 5% only for tax. But if you import only the chassis or CKD, namely completely knocked down, that the tax is still 40%, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resource and PLN have also provided enough incentive. We get the basic rate for energy costs. The challenge may be that the cost of installing electricity infrastructure is still high, even though there is an incentive to be able to make installment in terms of paying or financing. We hope that in the future the installation fee can be much cheaper or even free if possible. Yeah. Okay. Another challenge, especially in the rollout phase or full implementation later, when the procurement of 100 or 1,000 of buses in the next 3 or 4 years is the complexity of the supporting infrastructure. It will require build a lot of charging infrastructure both inside the depot and outside the depot. Currently, there are actually several incentive from government, ministry, and PLN, but all the investment costs are still on us as a business actor. When compared to ICE buses, we only invest in fleet unit. Gas stations are built by the government or state-owned enterprise, which operate by state-owned enterprise or the private sector. We, as a bus operator, don't have to worry about investing in the construction of this gas station. Just come to the gas station, fill up with fuel, and just pay for the gas. No need to headache building and paying for infrastructure support. Well, this is not happen in electric bus. We have to buy bus, buy our own charger, pay the cost of installing and own infrastructure, pay the cost of our upgrade, etc. This is what makes the cost for electric bus is still relatively high. There needs ideas and policies to make this electric bus program more feasible in the future. We hope that in the future the supporting infrastructure for charging can be provided by the government or PLN or others. We as operator just pay the energy cost if possible, same as now with the ICE bus. Yeah, okay. This is the last slide from me. Thank you for your attention. I return the time, stage, and screen to Mas Koko. Yeah, thank you, Mas Koko.
Thank you very much, Mas Bayu, for sharing that. And I think that's a important lessons indeed. As you know, cities are beginning to navigate how they will electrify their fleet and phase out their diesel buses. And I think credit goes to Transjakarta for being really the pioneer in modernization of our bus system, transforming the institution of a bus operation. And indeed, the central government has learned a lot from what happened in Transjakarta and replicate that to other cities. Okay, so last but not least, we have Chris Liang. Chris is joining us from Shenzhen. He is the operation managers of international development department at the Shenzhen Bus Group company. And he will be talking to us about his company's knowledge on electric public transportation and what are the opportunities that his company may offer to our organizations in Indonesia and beyond. So Chris, the floor is yours for the next 15 minutes.
All right, thank you very much. And yeah, as mentioned, that's something that I would like to talk about. So Shenzhen Bus Group is, I would say, one of the first companies that completed 100% electrification from its own diesel fleet to now what we have the electric fleet. But to understand some of the reasoning behind why we go electric, why we choose certain vehicle types, it's important to understand a little bit about Shenzhen, the city. So as you can see from the bottom right, that's the map of Shenzhen. It's a relatively long city from the east to the west, but it's not too far apart when we look at the north and the south side. And we can also kind of see that Shenzhen is not a very hilly city. So it's on the plain and it's also in a temperate temperature. So this is some of the very, very optimal conditions for electric buses to run. And about Shenzhen Bus Group ourselves, we cover a range of business from urban buses, custom buses, taxis, cross-border and long-distance coaches, cross-border trucks, and civil engineering vehicles. And we are a company of around 26,000 employees. And so here's a little bit of history about when we started kind of our zero emission journey, electrification journey. So all the way back in 2008, we started what we call the New Energy Bus Trial, where we have purchased and tried 10 hybrid buses. And between 2008 and 2010, we also look into numerous other different new energy vehicle types, including the LNG vehicle, LPG vehicles, plug-in electric, range extending electric, and eventually we have chosen what we have now, the battery electric buses, as our kind of end goal for electrification. And in 2010, we have started the official trial of 137 electric buses and 50 electric taxis in the cities. And because in this phase, we are still trying to buy more and more buses and see how it works in a much larger scale. And what we have discovered is that while the energy supply of the city is important, but it's also very important how we charge our buses. At the time, the technology that we were facing was that one charging terminal with one charging gun, that it was the most popular model of charging terminal. But that wasn't enough for us, because for us to kind of maximize the use of our bus depot, we need something that is more efficient. So cooperating with our charging service suppliers, we have developed this grid-style fast charging technology, which allowed us to charge up to 4 buses from the same charging terminal at the same time. And 1 year later, in 2017, we have completed the electrification with over 6,000 buses and 3,000 taxis. And to better support this electric bus and taxi fleet, we have built our charging stations to a more up-to-speed standard. So in 2018, our charger to bus ratio is close to 1:4, and we have also built 333 chargers for the taxis. And the reason for this amount is that the charging for the electric taxi is very different from what we are looking at for the buses. For taxis,
Chris,
yes.
Excuse me, Chris, sorry to interrupt. Were you meaning to share your slides, or
was it not showing up? Oh,
it's not showing up?
Okay.
Okay, now we're good.
See it now? Okay, all right.
Now we do, yes.
And now it's a little bit about our current fleet size. Now we keep around 6,000 buses for now, but our taxi fleet grew much, much larger. And the reason for that kind of small downsize for our bus fleet is that over the years, Shenzhen is also undergoing a very major metro network construction, so that our bus fleet, we were trying to optimize it and try to fit it to other uses, as we can see in the next few slides. And this is the current vehicle type distribution of our buses. As you can see, the major supplier of Shenzhen Bus Group for our vehicles is BYD, and then we have some amount of Nanjing Golden Dragon, aka Skywell buses. And for the upcoming procurement, we are also including a few other suppliers as well. That includes the ZTE, one supplier from Xiamen, and one other supplier from Zhengzhou, that is Yutong. And because at the very beginning of our electrification process, the metro system wasn't as developed as what we're looking at today. So at the time, we were still choosing the BYD-K8, which is a 10.5-meter bus with large space, large battery that can cover up to almost 300 and 320 kilometers with a brand new battery. And so over the years, we have accumulated a 0.9 kilowatt hour per kilometer power consumption ratio, which is, we would say, is very, very satisfactory to our operation, because this actually brings our energy cost almost by 60% when we are comparing it with our diesel operation. And because of the metro development, we are looking to kind of shrink our buses, shrink the bus size a little bit, and to make it more of a metro feeders type of service. So now we are looking at the BYD K7, Skyrail EV4, and these are 8.5, 7, or even 6-meter buses that seats around 10 to 16 passengers, but the total capacity can reach to around 30, 35-ish. Because of the smaller vehicle size and the smaller battery, and the power consumption for these buses are even better when we compare it with the 10.5-meter model. It goes to about 0.6 kilowatt hour per kilometer. And one thing that we found very important is that due to the different technical aspect and nature of the electric bus and the diesel bus, it's very important for us to develop these two documents. The first one is what we call the vehicle-specific technical archive, which would include any technical information that is relating to any individual buses. These information would include the technical aspect, its technical performance, and any repair and maintenance work that has been done on the bus. And from this archive, what we are trying to achieve is that what we call the predictive maintenance model, which can help us to even better arrange our dispatching, our work in the workshop, and also our stockpile in the warehouse. And the second document is the route-specific operation handbook. This handbook was developed because of the much longer kind of recharge time when you're comparing it with the refueling time of that diesel bus. And now the dispatcher, the fleet management have to take the recharge time into consideration when they are planning their service, when they're planning this dispatch, and hence this handbook that they develop that can incorporate all kinds of information on what kind of buses is needed, what is the minimum technical requirement for the buses to operate in such and such route, what are the behavior of the passengers is like along these routes so that they can plan their work. And all these information are also incorporated into our intelligent management system, where Shenzhen Bus Group actually started its digitalized management back in even before 2010. And but back then we were using numerous of subsystems from operations management, from technical management, workshop and warehouse management, and etc. Now, in 2018, we have compiled and integrate all these data together into this intelligent management system, so that these data are now kind of intercorrelated for better analysis needs. And based on the ITS, Intelligent Transportation System, we are trying to take our operation management one step further. First is with the safety management. We are now trying to equip all buses with the ADAS system, which serve the purpose to kind of just assist drivers when they are driving. What it does is that it detects an incoming object, determines what kind of object it is, and it compares to our parameters in the database and determine the threat level of that incoming object and try to warn the driver what that is. Because in Shenzhen, parking is a huge issue because a lot of people are still using private vehicle as their daily commuting, their daily mobility option. So a lot of people, they tend to park on the roadside, and if that's a relatively larger vehicle and a pedestrian decide to cross the road, the driver may or may not be able to see it, but that piece of hardware can react and tell the drivers that there may be something coming out that he needs to pay attention to. And we also incorporated this driver behavior monitor to kind of collect the driver's behavior when he's in operation. And what it does is that it also matches with the behavior parameters that we have in the database and see if his action is in compliance with our company regulation and the laws. And these parameters will determine actions like if the driver is smoking in the vehicle, if he's eating or drinking, is he sleepy. And these collection is mainly based on the camera, but it also incorporates things in our CAN network. So we can also tell the driver, if the driver is slowing down and how far ahead he is slowing down when he's, say, approaching a crosswalk, approaching a school zone. What is the vehicle speed that he's driving near, say, residential areas, near school, near hospital. And all this information is archived, and we try to develop a driver's profile based on these information. So now we try to judge a driver from different criteria, like the driving skill, the driving habits, and driving attitudes. These three main criteria, as we can see on the top left, top right, and bottom left graphs. And on the bottom right, we also take note of the physical aspect of that driver. What is his blood pressure? We also kind of have a small chat with him and see what his mental state is he really stressed? So that now we can develop, because back then when we were trying to train our drivers, it's relatively like a primary school's classroom. You got 40 kids, 50 kids sitting in the same place, listening to the same thing. It was effective for our new drivers, but for more experienced drivers, they tend to find it not helpful. But now with this driver's profile, I would say, we can develop a more personal, more customized training packages for our drivers that targets his weak points. For example, if we find out that he is not giving a proper signal when he changes a lane, when he takes a turn, and we can develop a targeted training package just on that topic, and if that was the only issue that he's having. So now our training towards the driver is a more custom one, and we think that this approach is able to help our drivers become more competent when they are in operation. And also, because of the digitalized management, now we can get more data from the Transportation Bureau. As we can see on the left, we have different locations for in the system, indicating the regulation violation locations and traffic accident locations. And depends on how often these incident takes place, we can map out these locations on our routes, as we can see on the right. So what we see here is there are different colors on the route. The green and the yellow indicates different directions that a bus is going, but the purple and the red indicates there are different level of threats. The red means that people tend to have accidents around these areas, and the purple means some other risky locations. These locations is most likely include school zones, residential areas, hospitals, crossings, places where drivers would have roadside parking, where the driver needs to take extra attention when they're approaching these areas. And now a little bit to our charging infrastructure management. So, I mean, after the electrification transition, charging is a very, very important topic for us when we are trying to build it, when we are trying to operate it, when we are trying to charge our buses. And intuitively, what we are trying to do is to build as high of a capacity of a charging station to individual depots as possible. But in reality, there is only a very limited amount of electricity that we can take from the grid at any location. So what matters now is that we are trying to kind of optimize that very limited electricity from the grid before we overload it, and to kind of speed up our charging process as much as possible. Hence, we can see different power output charging terminals on the right. But now we can see the most popular model in Shenzhen Bus Group is like is the 240 kilowatt model, and this is and these kind of chargers are also equipped with 4 charging guns, which means it can charge up to 4 vehicles at the same time, as we can see on the left. And we also are testing a newer model of charging terminal that can support up to 380 kilowatt in terms of output. But some other experiments that we're doing is what we call decentralized dynamic charging. So instead of having individual charging terminals throughout the depot, now we're trying to put everything together in one place, as we can see on the bottom left picture. Through this kind of dynamic charging center, it redistribute power to different charging guns. So now we don't have to build individual charging terminals, which takes up a lot of place in our depot, which is already very limited. And from one of the previous slides, when we were talking about the vehicle models, it's mentioned that we would do mostly at depot overnight charging. The reason behind that is that in Shenzhen, we are operating under what we call the greater industrial electricity price regime, where we can see here, the green part of the outer ring is the low electricity price period. And then it alternates between regular and peak price throughout the day and then returns. So for a public transportation operator like us, what we're trying to do is maximize the use of that overnight charging period where it's the cheapest. And luckily, that is the say regular or even no demand operation period for us. So this is doable, but for some of the routes that we still have currently, they span more than 30 kilometers for a one-way trip. So when they finish 1 or 2 round trips, they need to be charged. So what we're trying to do is that we will still use that regular electricity price period, which is the orange part of the outer ring, and avoid the peak electricity price period use. So these are the different kind of charging strategies that we have in the company. So the overnight charging and midday top-up is what I just mentioned for our bus service, but we also do some opportunity charging, but that is usually for our taxis operation, because when you compare a bus service to a taxi service, it's quite different because buses, they go back to the same depot every time they finish a service, so they can have a very ideal location that we can map out for them to charge. But for taxis, they are, well, put it simply, they are everywhere. They can be at any location at any time, and they can need charging at any place at any time. So what we, the way that we try to deal with it is that we are now also cooperating with third parties like shopping malls, parking lots, public parks that has charging capabilities, and kind of work out a deal with them to provide charging for our drivers at our price. And I think one thing that we should never overlook is that going electric is not only a kind of environmental choice. It also opens up a lot of opportunities when we take a deeper look into our services, because after electrification and in combination of the impact of the metro system, we do see that the passenger demand has been decreasing, but rather than decreasing, I would say it's changing. So now we are trying to offer more kind of customized service and more dynamic, agile type of service. So we have developed on the top is the UD and the U++ bus. These are customized buses that we offer to our passengers. They can go as far as electing their own route and reserve their own seat on that bus during the rush hour when they're commuting between home and work. And we also have the specific metro connection service and airport express service. So that's only for the bus part. And we have also different types of experience for the taxis. So these, so what comes with electrification is what I would like to say, it also the intelligentization of our service will also come with. So that conclude my part of the presentation, and thank you very much. And I would give the floor back to Coco.
Thank you very much, Chris, for your impressive presentation. I'm very much interested in the way your organization sort of optimizes charging time against the time of day variation of electricity prices in Shenzhen. So that is something to note. That is really something I think that Indonesia can learn from you moving forward, because I think it does make sense. A peak, I mean, if there's more demand, then the pricing should reflect that, so that those who for more production and consumption, they can optimize that, and the price is sort of like the signal, to clear electricity market at any given time of day. So with that, I'd like to go to the our next activity, which is Q&A. The organizer has been kind enough to pre-select the questions here, but I would encourage the host, the panelists, if they see on the chat box, questions that they would like to address, feel free to type it in. I'm just going to read out the few of the questions that I think sort of like summarizes or captures the ongoing conversation in the lively conversation in the chat box. So for Pa Rizal, I'll start with you, Pa. There's this question from Pa Yudi Ismail. So he's saying that we need to develop electric bus infrastructure, including the source of fuel for power plant. Now, and this is, I think, a concern from Jan as well. If we're still using fossil fuel for the power plants, would that not defeat the purpose of deploying electric buses? Now, how will the Indonesian government develop green and clean power plants? Look, and I'd just like to note that, yes, we do need probably do something to address that, but electric buses probably can help with local pollution and local noise pollution, but how would the government address the fossil fuel power plants? Pak Rizal.
Yeah, thank you, Pak. I try to answer many questions from me, from the Pak Antonio, Pak Tegar Tiwayudi. So allow me to answer the question. Of course, we have required the use of electric car buses followed by SPKLU. SPKLU means the charging system, dispenser for electric with environmental friendly. Materials such as a solar cell, a wind, and a water power. This is some local government they give a requirement if the area, this province or the kabupaten kota need for the pilot project for the electric car, they give a requirement must be use the environmental friendly for the SPKLU. So we try use the solar cell or the wind or the water for the power.
Right.
For the for the Wahyudi. So back to the Pak Antonio. So now Indonesia is suited for the access for the supply of electric energy. Still quite enough for the electrical, but for the next, the right one is must be the environmental friendly for the SPKLU. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Rizal. Okay, so the next question I'd like to address Finan from ITDP. There's a question from Tegar Tri Wahyudi from Cakra Jawara. How long can it take to charge a car or electric bus at the charging point? And if the time exceeds 1 hour, won't this cause queues and congestion? How shall we anticipate or prepare for this? Jakarta is also known for flooding during rainy season. How can electric cars or electric bus function properly in times of calamity such as flooding?
Okay, thank you, Mas Koko, for the question, and thank you. So I will try to answer the question from Pak Tegar, if I'm not mistaken. So the first question is regarding how long it takes to charge like electric car or electric bus. So it depends on the charger power that you use and also on the battery capacity for your electric car and your electric bus. So for our study in Transjakarta, I think Pak Bayu also mentioned before. So we have several type of charging strategy. So if we require like more than 1 hour charging, so we will suggest to have a charging at the depot or at least like what is it like we call it charging facility or staging facility. So it has like the space to parking the bus. So it's not
right.
Yeah, it's not have an impact for the traffic. But then if for the terminal charging, we usually use the power output that more than 150 or more than 300 kilowatt power. So you might need only like 3 to 5 minutes just to charge your e-bus or electric car until it's full charge. And then regarding the next question for the flooding, so this is our current ongoing study for Transjakarta. So I cannot answer it right now, but then we also consider this like what will happen if like we try to what is it like develop how we like a resilient strategy to manage this issue, but this is still in our ongoing study.
Yeah, and since yes, thank you, Mafinan. And since now it's started to rain again, that question will become ever more relevant. Yeah. The plan to roll out 30 buses in December might very well be subjected to weather as well. So yes, and I'm really anxious. I do hope we are able to to run a resilient service by the time we do roll out the electric buses.
Thank you. So for Mas Bayu, there's a question from Pak Kadafi, Ministry of Industry. So of course, concerns about local content. Is it possible for Transjakarta to use electric bus that is manufactured locally? I think I should say, as we know, currently there's brand from China in Europe, the first movers. Is there any policy as to improving the local content of EV buses that Transjakarta will run? I think you're still on mute, Mas Bayu.
Okay, Mas Koko. Yeah. Yes, Pak Gaddafi. I think it's very possible. We use electric bus from Indonesia. Currently, we are setting a trial time for MAB, Mobil Anak Bangsa bus, just waiting for permission. And INKA, industri kereta api, will also conduct trial. Currently, still in the bus prototype development stage. We waiting for INKA. Yes, for the first 100 unit, the TKDN content for the bus is 0%. However, the charging infrastructure, except for the charger, use domestic product. All human resource also come from Indonesia, except maybe the expert. Well, at this early stage, we import or build up bus from foreign country like China or Europe, but gradually we want the electric bus industry to be more mature in Indonesia, so that we don't just depend on foreign production. We heard that the bodybuilder like Laksana Karoseri has now also carried out a trial to build an electric bus body. Hopefully the domestic industry can start soon. Yes, Mas Koko, maybe that's my answer.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Bayu. And I think this is definitely a challenge, and I think this is something that our industry should also consider, is to keep up with the global trends, and not expect government then to provide protectionist policy to shield them from competition from electric buses, because that's where the trend is headed. We can either choose to become a leader in this or a follower, and I think we should choose to become a leader. Okay. Okay, moving on. Chris, there's a question for you from Jeffrey Sheng. What are the potential roles of your organization? What can your organization play in Indonesia's e-bus plan, between next year and 2030?
I mean, I would say starting from 2019, our department is founded the International Development Department. So what we are aiming to do now is to kind of incorporate all the different kind of experience, all the different practices that we have since 2008, and try to develop, I would say, a package for any brother companies, any brother public transportation operators in the world to kind of refer to. In fact, we have already been working with the World Bank and UITP to develop, first of all, a case studies for the entire electrification process that's been out with the World Bank, and also some electric taxi operating toolkit or handbook, however you want to call it, to kind of walk through our process and find out some of the reasoning behind our decision made, our path chosen. So to provide some sort of kind of ideas to other operators. And we are also now offering kind of consultancy services to other countries or companies that wants to go electric and try to develop a more localized package for that city or for that company in terms of electrification or just simply taking their operation, say, one step further.
Right. Thank you so much, Chris. And I'm looking at the time here. We're about 8 minutes over. So, I think I'd like to just wrap up this panel session and thanking everyone in the panel for their time and their contribution. We're indeed a very enlightening, this sharing session. I hope participants from non-Indonesian participants can get a better picture of what Indonesia is planning on achieving by 2030 and beyond. And I hope Indonesian audience here can also learn from experiences in Shenzhen, definitely, and also elsewhere in the world. And I'll again, before I close this session, I would like to remind everybody to mark your calendar, save the date for March, the third week of March, for Buzzworld, offline event. And I could not think of a better place to host this, because Indonesia is a fast growing economy. It's a fast growing urban population as well. We're expected to our cities are expected to house upward 75% of our population by 2045. So be sure to save the date for the third week of March. With that, thank you again, Buzzworld, for the opportunity, and thank you, panelists. I would like to hand it over to the MC, Mbak Meta.
Okay, thank you, Pak Koko, for the successful guidance for today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the next session, let's welcome Mr. Bakili, the Director of Game Indonesia, to deliver his closing speech. Pak Baki, time is yours now.
Okay. Yeah. First and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation to all speakers, moderators, for their contribution in our webinar today. Thank you for the speakers who are the expert from this business. And terima kasih kepada Pak Rizal Wasal, Ministry of Transportation, Republic of Indonesia, dan Miss Financial Nanloi Hi, ITDP Indonesia, dan Mr. Bayu Purbo dari Transjakarta, and Mr. Chris Liang Nihao from Shenzhen Bus Group. And to our great moderators today is making this session is much more interesting. Dr. Arya Dillon, Pak Koko, yang biasa kami sebut Pak Koko ya, dari Sekjen MTI, yaitu Masyarakat Transportasi Indonesia. Tidak lupa kami ucapkan terima kasih juga kepada Halte Bus yang merupakan salah satu strategic partner untuk Buzzword Southeast Asia. I also convey my deepest gratitude to all attendees who are present here and make decision is successful webinar. Thank you for all. And after we heard the presentation from the Ministry of Transport, ITDP, Transjakarta, that Indonesia has a very big business opportunity in e-bus. And from the Shenzhen Bus Group, we learn more their experiences in the Shenzhen's transportation. In the previous Buzzword Southeast Asia, we also invite from Ministry and Industry and state that Indonesia is ready to produce e-bus with production capacity about 1,200 units per year. The government also has set a target more than 40,000 electric buses to be able to operate in 2024 in some major city. At the same time, I would like to invite all audiences to attend the Buzzword Southeast Asia 2022, which will be held physically and face-to-face from 23 until 25 March 2022 at GI Expo Jakarta, Indonesia. Buzzword Southeast Asia 2022 will be an important event to show the technology of the world of the buses for Southeast Asia, especially Indonesia, which need a large number of the e-bus. Good news for COVID-19 Indonesia. So this is one of our obstacles to do the exhibition by physically. So COVID-19 pandemic Indonesia experiences improvement trend, where the positive rate continue to drop sharply. Currently, Indonesia's COVID-19 positive rate is fallen below 1%, so below the WHO's benchmark standard of 5%. There's an indicator that Indonesia's second wave of the COVID-19 could be easing. Vaccinations has reached more than 180 million of doses. So it's a ranked 5 in the world, which is the highest cumulative COVID-19 vaccination. And effective October 14th, 2021, last week, Indonesian government has reopened for international tourists. So in the first steps, only for 19 countries are able to enter Indonesia with 5 days quarantine. And the government also are considering the possibility of reducing the quarantine period to 3 days and eventually removing the quarantine requirement all the latest. And good news to all us, Indonesia will hold MotoGP on 20 March next year. So our Buzzword is 22, 23, under 25. So for our Buzzword exhibitor, you can use this opportunity to visit the Mandalika to attend the MotoGP on 20th March. After that, you can come to the exhibition hall to prepare for your exhibition. Okay, the main goal of the webinars is for our Indonesia to become the main player for electric bus in the future. So we like to send our deepest gratitude to our Askarindo, IPOMI, MTI, ITDP, who have fully supported in the Buzzword Southeast Asia exhibition and webinar. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all support and your presence today's webinar. I would like to see you again for our next webinar. I'm Bakidi from GM Indonesia. Thank you dan selamat siang. Selamat sore, maaf.
Thank you, Mr. Baki, for the closing speech, which officially closed today's webinar. Next, we will take a virtual photo for all speakers, moderator, Mr. Yan, and Mr. Bakili. Please turn on your video, take your position, and smile. We will count 3 before shoot. 1, 2, 3. Done. Thank you all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we'd like to present virtual certificates to today's speakers and moderator. First certificate is presented for Mr. Rizal Wasal.
Thank you.
Second, thank you for time. And second for Mrs. Financiana Lohi.
Thank you, Mbak Meta.
Yeah.
Third for Mr. Bayu Purbo.
Thank you, Mbak Meta.
And then the fourth for Mr. Chris Liang.
Thank you very much.
And the last certificate goes to our moderator, Mr. Yaharya S. Dilan.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. All certificates will be sent through email to all respective speakers and moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to convey our gratitude to all speakers, moderator, for their participation and make this session become more interesting. And also thanks to all attendees for your presence for the webinar. To all attendees who like to have presentation materials, you may access our website at www.buzzwordsoutheastasia.org or the link shown on your screen. Bagi para hadirin yang menginginkan materi presentasi, silakan mengunjungi official website kami di www.buzzwordsoutheastasia.org atau link yang tertera pada layar monitor Anda. Through this opportunity, we like to present our deep appreciation for Ministry of Transportation Republic of Indonesia, Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, ITDP Indonesia, PT Transportasi Jakarta Transjakarta, Shenzhen Bus Group, MTI Indonesia Transportation Society, and Halte Bus. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to inform you regarding our Buzzword Southeast Asia offline exhibition, which will be held on 23 to 25 March 2022 at GI Expo Kemayoran, Jakarta. We would gladly welcome you all to attend this exhibition. On behalf of GEM Indonesia, we'd like to convey our gratitude to all speakers, moderator, and all audiences who are with us. Thank you for your participation. That is very big appreciation for us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our webinar has ended. Hopefully, this webinar can give us some benefit. Thank you for your support, attention, and presence for today's webinar. See you at the next webinar. I would like to apologize for any mistake while hosting this event. I'm Meta from GEM Indonesia. Wish you to take care, stay healthy, and good afternoon.
Terima kasih Pak Rizal, Pak Koko.
Thank you, everyone.
Terima kasih Pak Baki, Pak
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much.
Chris,
Thank you for all of you.
Risa, Pak Denja.
深圳见。
深圳见。时常去深圳看看一下。
Terima kasih.
随时欢迎，随时欢迎。来，拜拜。
Yeah, bye bye.
This is Jakarta, Indonesia, one of the world's biggest megacities in an urban cluster of 30 million inhabitants. In the bouncing heart of Southeast Asia, Buzzworld landed for a tremendous first-time international mobility bus and coach exhibition.
I have a very good feeling.
Buzzworld being right on time in an extremely challenging era for a country of 260 million inhabitants. It became the key factor for a smash hit in the core of the collective transport and bus and coach market. The first edition welcomed the biggest and most popular bus and coach manufacturers and bodybuilders of Indonesia: Mercedes-Benz, Volvo Buses, New Armada, and Laksana. All of the key brands were here, and 7,000 unique visitors came to the venue together with the international professional press.
For this great opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, presenting you the Volvo B11R and Volvo.
Launching new products like the Volvo B11R or the Mercedes-Benz OF917, updating the audience and the press, open-air ceremonies for new buses, and presenting companies with accessories and components. It all took part in the JI Expo on Buzzworld Indonesia 2019. The market for buses and coaches in Indonesia was clearly waiting for an exhibition like this. The two core organizing partners of Buzzworld International, the Federation of Young Bus and Coach Operators IPOMI, and the Federation of Bus Bodybuilders in Indonesia, Askerindo, did a great job in bringing together the operators, the decision makers, and all lovers of buses and coaches in the country. Checking out the latest designs of buses and coaches, components and spare parts on Buzzword is easily combined with attending presentations, seminars and expert classes at a conference organized by Buzzworld Academy. 350 people from 30 countries came to listen to speakers and international mobility specialists from more than 15 countries. Buzzworld Southeast Asia 2019 exceeded all expectations and was a real bullseye for the bus and coach community.